Okay, we talked about Batman, we talked about Superman, we need to talk about Wonder Woman. Your take on Wonder Woman, on the miniseries Earth One with Yannick Paquette was quite different, once again, from what you've seen in the shelves, because it is a story about a women's world, and all the what struck me is that you thought about this in a way that's completely different. You thought about the architecture, you thought about the society, the structure of society. I mean, the gender identity and everything is a very, very important topic these days. And I think with your Wonder Woman, once again, before the debate opens, you started to talk about that and to fill your comic with that. But it's not only Wonder Woman, I think. Your female figures are always been quite revolutionary and important in your comics.
Well, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I grew up with my mother and my sister. You know, my parents got divorced when I was 12 years old, and I lived with my mother and my sister. So strong and independent and informed and scary women were always in my life, you know. So I wanted to reflect that. You know, I'd see characters who weren't like my mother, weren't like my sister, who weren't like the girls I knew. And coming from Scotland, from Glasgow, you know, the girls are kind of, you know, they're sexy and they're tough. So there's a sense that, you know, I might be reading things and I just think I don't recognise these women in the story. So I was trying to just add a bit more of the people that I knew, basically, and how they dealt with things and how they talked and thought. And I thought, and you know, just by doing that, it seemed somewhat revolutionary, let's say. I mean, not so revolutionary in the sense that I came up with a lot of other people from Britain who had similar ideas, you know, and who were trying to represent the women they knew more accurately than falling into the sort of comic book stereotypes. So I wasn't alone, but it just seemed like the thing to do, you know. So I think that's why a lot of those characters are either based on my mother, based on my sister, or based on women I was going out with at the time, or people that I knew, or friends that I had. So there was always a supply of very different types of people to base characters on, rather than going back to the well and one similar type all the time. And it was the same with race, you know. I mean, I think people probably forget, but again, in order to represent the world that I lived in and the people that I knew as a musician, or the people that I met on the streets, I was so surprised that there were so few black people in comics. So I would always, you know, I did Manhattan Guardian, I had Shiloh Norman, Mr. Miracle. I'm going way back. I made the Black Superman, I made a Black Wonder Woman, I've made a Black Batman. I mean, it's kind of, people haven't really noticed this trail through my work of trying to represent. And now I feel at least that there's a new generations coming in, and I don't have to do that anymore, because as you know, that I can only do so much. It's not my place really to represent that, but I at least wanted to see faces in my comic books that were much more like the people I was meeting or seeing on the streets. So I've been doing that now for 30 years, and I think looking back, it's like, oh, I'm quite proud of that, you know, for doing that now, because as you say, these are now issues that are very much in the discussion, you know, in the same way I was always including gay characters or trans characters before anyone else did that, unless, you know, those characters used to only appear as victims in stories, you know, at best it'd be some ugly transvestite getting murdered in a back alley before Spawn turns up. So I felt that I was always trying to just, again, not to be revolutionary, but just to be representative of how the world seemed to me, and it wasn't just filled with white Americans.
Antonio?
Okay, let's move on to Green Lantern, which is one of the last things that you're doing for DC. And in this respect, your work seems very much an examination of what it means to be a hero. And, you know, like basically, you talked about the single story, you know, single story format, basically. But as far as I'm concerned, each single story is a sort of mini essay of one of the aspects of Hal Jordan and what makes him a modern hero, like inclusivity, fearlessness, and all this stuff. Do you want to talk about this?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was quite deliberate, obviously, and again, it came from the source. Going back and looking at Green Lantern comics, and honestly, I've never been a huge fan of Green Lantern. I didn't like it when I was growing up because he was always getting in fights, and he was always in these kind of weird bum fights all the time by the side of the railroad. And I liked the Flash because he was sleek and sexy and fashionista kind of guy. But Green Lantern I didn't like at all. And I had a brief period where I read the Green Lantern, Green Arrow, Neil Adams stuff, which I enjoyed. But again, Green Lantern's he's a bit of a wimp in that. He's kind of confused. So never a fan. So when it came around to doing the comic, and I mostly did the comics I wanted to work with Liam. Liam and I have been talking for years about doing something, and this was our opportunity. So I didn't want to do monthly comics, but the chance to work with Liam kind of pulled me back in. So I reread all the Green Lantern stuff, and what struck me most was a bit like, with Batman, when you put the whole story together, this guy's really super inconsistent. Like I say, he can be this confused right-wing boneheaded cop in one story, and then he's this really effective romantic lead in another story, but then he's this kind of hopeless guy who's always getting dumped by his girlfriend and is taking on all these menial jobs in another story. And so that, to me, it was all, I'm thinking, this is this Chuck Yeager test pilot guy, but he ends up working as a toy salesman or a truck driver. And it seemed that was the key. It was this restless. I suddenly thought what he is the classic. He's the American 1950s, the beatnik. He's the who was he based on? The Paul Newman kind of guy. And that was the character. Suddenly it's like he's not a character. He's a guy who'll just try anything. He's like, you go anywhere. There's no Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan's the man who does the adventures. And Hal Jordan, as a man, is confused. He's lots of different things. He's lots of different women. They all see him in a different way. And so that to me was like, there's an interesting character study here to get into that guy and to show where he's really effective as super police guy. He's the ultimate effective human. As an ordinary man, he's not effective in that way. He's Jack Kerouac. He likes to just hitch rides and spend a little time in one place with one girl and then move on before any commitment or any emotional hooks get into him. And that became fun to write about that guy. And again, it's funny when I see people saying, "Oh, Hal Jordan's this really cardboard character. He's the worst character of all. He's just this white cardboard character." And they'll point to other characters, say, "Oh, John Stewart's really a much more complex." No, but look, there's nothing complex about any of these characters. The idea that John Stewart, who's just used to be an architect, but then he wound up as a Marine Corps tough guy sniper, he's no more cardboard than Hal Jordan or any of them. They're all cardboard until you start teasing out the wider picture. So, like I say, for Hal, I grew to love the character, but it was mostly for me to work with Liam. And that's why also the single issue stories, because I wanted to push him to as many different places. Because once you get Liam, you can just think of any mad thing and he can draw it. And so I love that. I started thinking, well, what can I get him to do next? A Planet of Vampires, what can I get him to do next? So the stories were all quite individual and distinct, so that I could push him to more places. And especially, I mean, as the second book has come to its end, he's just transcending. I mean, the last issue of Green Lantern looks like Arkham Asylum. It's mad.
Yeah, how did you go about like being the drummer of the band? Like to Liam being the lead guitar and singer.
Well, that was it. He was so good. It was like, and I was kind of, I was at the end of everything I wanted to say. Wonder Woman was done, and like I say, these two things are big statements. Wonder Woman's a very big statement on all my work, and Green Lantern especially, because it's kind of the last story of Hal Jordan for a little while before he's the star of the book. So there was a lot of it which was me being able to say farewell, but at the same time, the commitment that I had to say something like Batman or the big projects, it wasn't the same with this. I took it on as an easier job, and it was. I had a lot of time to do it. I wasn't on harsh deadlines, so it became like a kind of walk in the park for me. It was like a holiday. And Liam's work was just so brilliant. It's like having Jimi Hendrix in the band. So it was really easy for me to just step back and think, this isn't about me showing off this, and this is about me giving this guy a showcase. If I can just step back and give him a beat and a rhythm and let him go nuts. And he does, you know, and sometimes he'll ignore panel descriptions and throw out characters. But I'll just get the artwork back and work around that. So there's a kind of, you know, a free-form associative thing that we do. And it's just been brilliant. But it's very much his show, you know. I just love to get every issue and it's just look at what he's done.
Okay, I think that in the time we had, we covered mostly everything we wanted to talk about, and thank you for this. I have one last question for you, which is something really easy to close the interview. What I like a lot about your comics, apart from the structure and whatever we talked about before, is your one-liner. You have some very powerful one-liner. Our sentence is up. I can see you. Gotcha. Batman and Robin will never die. I mean, those are your trademarks almost right now. I mean, I was reading back in the days, some years ago, one Marvel comic, Original Sin, and there's the Watcher, Watu, which moves his head and says, I can see you. And that's Morrison. I mean, you can see that's an homage to something like to your books. And what I'm asking is, how much is this natural, and how much you want to, give the Morrison feeling to one book when you work on it?
It's just what I do, and part of my dream has always been to reduce a complicated idea down to something you can put on a T-shirt. So you're absolutely right. It's why I do comics. It's why I don't just write poetry or philosophy. I mean, I'm trying to explain ideas which are quite difficult in a way that anyone can understand them. So my ultimate aim is to get it down to one word, or E = MC squared, or something that's so simple. So in each of those cases, there always is. I try to find something. It's with Superman, it's like, there's things like there's always a way. He says that quite often. Or it's never impossible. So there's a lot of things that are like that. And Wonder Woman has a kind of ends on something like that. So very much. If I can distill the essence of a character or a storyline down into just a T-shirt or a little badge, then that's my job is done. So all of those things are quite deliberate. But I guess it's my style, it's my way of thinking.
Doing it nice and smooth.
Nice and smooth. There you go. Well, that was stolen from the Kinks, but it still fit King Wall better than it ever fit the Kinks.
So, Grant, thank you very, very much for your time and for this interview. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And I hope that we can do this again soon. Maybe, who knows, in person in Italy sooner than later.
Let's hope so. I really enjoyed it. And one of these days, COVID's going to be over, so we can all hang out in a bar somewhere.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
E ringraziamo Grant Morrison per essere stato insieme a noi oggi. Per quanto riguarda me, è stato un piacere e un onore intervistare il mio sceneggiatore di fumetto preferito di sempre. Se questo video è piaciuto anche a voi, vi ricordo di iscrivervi al nostro canale YouTube e di cliccare soprattutto sulla campanella in modo tale da rimanere costantemente aggiornati sui nostri prossimi video e le nostre prossime interviste. Vi ricordo anche di continuare a seguire i canali social di Panini, quindi Facebook e Instagram. Trovate tutti i link in descrizione. Io vi ringrazio tanto, vi do appuntamento al prossimo video di Panini Comics Insider. Ciao!